before we do anything else, our 10% discount to save money on eShop credit if you're in the EU and US regions is coming to an end at the end of January, unfortunately. So now is the time to go over there and grab your discount while you can, using code SwitchUp. With that said though, we're hoping to build even bigger and better things over there and try and unify some of our platforms into something that should be pretty darn cool for the channel overall. So keep your eyes on that. Everyone likes a good hidden gem, and Wavetale, although it came out about a month ago, looked absolutely delightful. Now thanks to Mike Foster who's helped to write this one, let's take a look at Wavetale. Do these choppy waters run deep, or does this game fail to make a splash? Well, let's find out. You play as Sigrid the Brave, rebellious but caring protagonist whose journey begins on an island with her grandma. She gives you basic chores to start up the lighthouse which, with the use of sparks, fend off the darkness. And it's here that you gain the ability to essentially walk on water through a chance encounter with a shadow from the deep. I almost feel this game was built with a mindset of flowing over the waves, through the air, across the lands, and in turn through the storyline. Nothing bar your own inability to make a certain jump will slow you down, and while some themes touched upon are very real, nothing ever gets too heavy. They've made a real gem of a game, but sadly, as the saying goes, those that burn brightest sometimes burn the fastest.
Only fools linger in the past, I always say.
And then off you go to save the world. The narrative is very much the bread and butter of the game, going to places to progress the storyline, helping those in need by fending off a limited range of mobs while hitting switches to start up power lines and feeding sparks into systems to keep the darkness at bay. While on the face of it that might seem like a bit of a weak premise, there's a good flow to it. It's an easy game to get into, and pushing forward to find out what happens next and triggering the next area is made even smoother by the complete lack of any load screens or time spent waiting around not knowing what you're doing next. The controls are a straightforward affair, but to my mind this is a good thing. There's no stamina bar slowing you down, no skills waiting to be unlocked to help with progression. Off the bat you have everything at your fingertips, from a double jump and glide to a quick dash and attack that means straight out of the gate, exploration and adventure is yours for the taking. There's always a cache of sparks hidden somewhere, or a journal entry waiting to be discovered, which I think emphasizes how much the devs want you to really take in the world they've created. I did initially encounter a couple of camera angle issues or clipping, but over time they were easy to overcome, with the camera trying to pan to help you out, especially when sliding and flying from the many jump points. It's a case of letting go a bit and letting the game flow through what the character's doing, which seems to make sense. From one perspective, this gameplay loop could be seen as a tad repetitive, with each area essentially having the same method of progression. As for being repetitive though, it's not really long enough to get repetitive. Now there are side quests, which again are a go and find X, with a little more depth, at least than I was expecting. For example, one of the characters you help alludes to his partner having dementia, and not only did I not see that coming, it just gave a sense of realism and heart to the game. There's also a fair few customizable items to unlock and journal pages to discover, with a lot of areas to explore, which was a positive because it stopped you just rushing through to the next story checkpoint. The combat system is quite primitive, but it's effective. Nothing takes more than a few hits, and the camera has a feeling of lock-on when attacking an enemy. You don't have to necessarily direct your character, she semi-locks on her own, whilst you hammer away at the attack button. But if the next one's behind you, you will have to manually take over. Perhaps some form of actual lock-on mechanic would have made sense. The same goes with these jump slides. If you force a direction or jump mid-grapple, you'll fall, but if you let the character go, she'll keep on going. This works really well from the sense that it allows for easier exploration, but it's not great when you accidentally fall off because you tried to take over. Overall gameplay is good, but perhaps a little too simplistic for some, and its brevity will impact your overall gameplay experience. Gameplay for me scores 14 out of 20. I feel like the lack of challenge might let it down for some players as well, as it is very easy indeed. However, for others that might actually be a positive, something that you can pick up and play, not have to worry about dying, and just as I did, enjoy cruising across the waves or jumping and swinging from point to point. After all the recent Souls games, I found it quite refreshing. Despite a few gripes, I would say controls still deserve 16 out of 20. They're solid for the most part, but with the occasional double jump not registering, and it took a bit of practice to get used to the hands-off nature of some of the elements. The art style, in my humble opinion, is superb. They've combined cel-shaded 3D with stop-motion animation effects and a hand-drawn stylistic expression on the character's face. It blends together so well, I'm almost tempted to buy this on another platform just to see it running at its best. As is so often the case, it could be said the Switch's lack of performance lets the game down here, as you can see where they've had to make allowances. But this was only upon looking at side-by-side comparisons. Until then, it was okay. You will find the jagged lines on the edges of cel-shaded objects and the blurring of colourful effects, but as far as performance goes, well, I think it runs just fine, with the occasional dip during more intense boss battles. There was a little bit of artifacting on some of the textures, and yeah, you remember when I said there were no load times? Well, there is obviously the initial loading, and the further you get into the game, that can take quite some time, to the point where it could potentially be a bit of a bug, but overall the visuals and performance get 14 out of 20. There's still a lot to like here. Overall the soundtrack is great, but some of the battle tunes feel a tad out of place when compared to the rest of the game.
Maybe you're some kind of sea creature.
On paper it makes sense, as you're battling dark creatures that shouldn't be there, so perhaps the juxtaposition in the audio moments were on purpose, to emphasise the unusualness of their presence within this world. When you're exploring an area, there's different ambient music for each zone, and the main theme running whilst riding those waves never gets old. There's a great mix of voice acting, ranging from fully voiced cutscenes, main dialogue and character development, down to grunts and exclamations when doing side quests and lesser important conversations. It's a good blend that overall works well. As always, sound and audio are a matter of taste, but for me I'd give it 17 out of 20. At £24.99, this is where we have the biggest contention. You could knock the entire experience out in a few hours in just one sitting, which makes that a premium price for the overall experience you're getting. Now, granted, it is an enjoyable game, and when you complete it, you unlock a free play mode to explore, surf, and complete everything the game has to offer, but something like a split-screen competitive mode is almost begging to be added, and certainly at the asking price, that story's just a tad too short. Value scores 10 out of 20. There's a freedom and smoothness to the way you move throughout this world that's not dissimilar to Marvel's own Spider-Man franchise. Sadly, Wavetale is just way too easy. It's fun, it's engaging, and most of the time there's nothing really holding you back, no stamina bar or skills to manage, but the combination of being easy, having mildly formulaic sections, and being quite short doesn't work in its favour. If, however, you are someone that prefers an easier experience, it's enjoyable to play, and the storyline is engaging, with a world that, in my opinion, is quite beautiful. There are walking simulators on Switch that are around about the same length, things like Abzu, that you enjoy more for the overall experience than the amount of time you spend with them. But this is very much a one and done for me, but would be a hearty sales recommendation. So there we have it. Let us know what you thought of this one. Is it a game that you picked up when it came out? As far as being a hidden gem, I'd say it is. It's just too expensive, and we really wish it was a bit longer. Remember, for the month of January, we still have our 10% discount. I can promise you that unfortunately that is more than likely not going to stay the month after. So now is the time to use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to save yourself as much money as you can. Thanks to all of you, our Patreons, and everyone that enjoys the channel. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya!